I stood at our 42nd floor apartment window, scotch burning my throat, watching my wife Emily giggle into her phone like a teenager with her first crush. The city lights blurred below us, and I couldn't help thinking how fitting that was. Everything in my life had become one big, distorted mess. My wife is laughing at something, I muttered to my reflection, and unless our cat learned to text, it's probably not me. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Emily Chen Morrison, she kept her maiden name for professional reasons, sat curled on our Italian leather sofa, her perfectly manicured fingers dancing across her phone screen. Her blonde hair caught the lamplight, and she wore that black silk nightgown I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one she hadn't let me see her in for months. We were the golden couple at Morrison & Associates Financial, the kind of power duo that made other executives jealous. I was Jack Morrison, Senior Vice President of Corporate Development. She was Emily Chen, Senior Manager of Client Relations. We drove matching BMWs, lived in a penthouse that cost more than most people's houses, and threw dinner parties that were featured in lifestyle magazines. But something had shifted in the last 6 months. Emily's late nights became later. Her business trips became more frequent, and her phone, Jesus, that phone, was glued to her hand like a life support device. "Who's texting you at 11 p.m.?" I asked, not turning from the window. "Monica," she said without looking up. "She's got some ideas for the Henderson account." Monica Reeves, Emily's boss, the woman who'd clawed her way to executive vice president by stepping on everyone else's necks. Everything was Monica said this, or Monica thinks that, these days. "Monica sure works late," I said. Emily's typing stopped for a fraction of a second. "She's dedicated. That's why she's where she is." I took another sip of scotch and studied my wife's reflection in the window. She was beautiful, had been since the day I met her at a company mixer 5 years ago. But now there was something cold in her eyes, something calculating that hadn't been there before. "Remember when you used to laugh at my jokes?" I asked. "You used to be funny." The words hit like a slap. I turned around, but Emily was already standing, phone in hand. "I'm going to bed," she said. "Early meeting tomorrow." She kissed my cheek, a quick, perfunctory peck, and disappeared into our bedroom. I heard the lock click. Since when did we lock doors in our own home? I finished my scotch and poured another. Outside, the city hummed with life, but inside our perfect apartment, everything felt lifeless. My phone buzzed, a text from my business associate Sophie Williams. "How was the Henderson presentation?" Emily seemed stressed about it. That was interesting. Emily had told me the Henderson presentation was next week. I scrolled through my calendar. Nothing scheduled for tomorrow that would require an early meeting. Another lie. Another crack in the glass. I walked to our home office and sat at Emily's desk. Her laptop was closed, but her planner lay open. Tomorrow's page showed one appointment. E.g., 2 p.m. downtown. E.g.? That wasn't Monica's initials. I opened Emily's desk drawer, looking for anything that might explain the mysterious meeting. Beneath some old business cards, I found a receipt from the Meridian Hotel. Room service for 2, champagne and strawberries. Last Tuesday, the night Emily said she was working late on the Patterson account. My hands shook as I studied the receipt. $237 for an evening Emily had supposedly spent at the office. I heard the shower running in our bedroom. Emily always showered before bed now, washing away whatever, or whoever, she'd been with during the day. The water stopped. I quickly put everything back and closed the drawer. "Jack?" Emily's voice carried from the bedroom. "Are you coming to bed?" "In a minute," I called back. But I didn't go to bed. I sat in that office chair until dawn, staring at the city lights and thinking about champagne and strawberries and mysterious appointments with E.G. By morning, I'd made a decision. If Emily wanted to play games, I'd show her what a real player looked like. 3 days later, Morrison & Associates hosted its quarterly client appreciation event at the Grand Ballroom of the Pinnacle Hotel. These gatherings were legendary in our industry. 500 of the city's most powerful people eating overpriced appetizers and pretending to enjoy each other's company. I wore my best Tom Ford suit and my lucky cufflinks, the ones Emily had given me for our first anniversary. She wore a red dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, and she looked stunning, but she barely glanced at me as we walked into the ballroom together. "Remember," she said, adjusting my tie, "the Hendersons are here tonight. This could be huge for both of us." "Both of us?" "Well, for the company. You know what I mean." Actually, I wasn't sure I did know what she meant anymore. The ballroom buzzed with conversation and clinking glasses. I recognized faces from Forbes magazine, local politicians, and celebrities who'd made their fortunes in tech and real estate. This was our world, the world Emily and I had built together. "Jack Morrison!" a voice boomed behind me. I turned to see Richard Patterson, one of our biggest clients, approaching with a smile and an outstretched hand. "How's the king of corporate development?" "Living the dream, Richard. How's the yacht business?" "Booming. Speaking of which, Margaret and I are having a little gathering next weekend. You and Emily should come." I glanced around for Emily, but she'd vanished into the crowd. "I'll check our calendar," I said. "Do that, and bring your appetites. My chef is preparing something special." Richard moved on to schmooze other potential guests, and I found myself alone with a glass of champagne I didn't remember picking up. The bubbles reminded me of the hotel receipt, and I felt that familiar knot in my stomach. "Jack Morrison, as I live and breathe." I turned to see Monica Reeves approaching, her silver hair perfectly styled and her smile sharp as a knife. She wore a black dress that hugged her curves and made her look 10 years younger than her 45 years. "Monica, you look beautiful tonight." "Flatterer. Where's your lovely wife?" "Networking, I assume. You know Emily, always working." "Indeed I do." Monica's eyes glittered with something I couldn't quite read. "She's very dedicated to her career advancement." There was something in the way she said it, a subtle emphasis that made my skin crawl. "Speaking of Emily," Monica continued, "I should probably find her. We have some business to discuss." She started to move away, but I caught her arm gently. "Actually, Monica, I was hoping to talk to you about something." "Oh?" "The Henderson account. Emily mentioned you had some innovative ideas." Monica's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose slightly. "The Henderson account? I'm not sure what Emily told you, but—" "Jack, there you are." Emily appeared at my elbow, slightly breathless and with a forced smile plastered on her face. She looked nervous, which was unusual. Emily never looked nervous. "Monica, I see you've met my husband." Emily's voice was strained. "We were just discussing the Henderson account," I said innocently. Emily's face went pale. "Oh, well, we should probably—" "Actually," Monica interrupted, her smile growing wider, "I think there's been some confusion. Emily, didn't you tell Jack about our conversation yesterday?" The silence stretched between the three of us like a taut wire. Emily's mouth opened and closed, like a fish gasping for air. "What conversation?" I asked. Monica looked at Emily expectantly. When Emily didn't speak, Monica's smile turned predatory. "Well, this is awkward," Monica said. "Emily, would you like to introduce Jack properly, or shall I do it?" "I don't understand," I said. Emily's face had gone from pale to red. She looked around frantically, as if searching for an escape route. "Emily?" Monica prompted. My wife took a shaky breath and looked at Monica with something that looked like pleading in her eyes, but Monica's expression remained cold and expectant. "Jack," Emily said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Meet Monica. And Monica, She paused, swallowing hard. This is Jack. He's just a neighbor. The words hit me like a physical blow. Around us, the party continued, laughter and conversation and clinking glasses. But I felt like I was underwater, everything muffled and distant. Just a neighbor? I repeated. Emily wouldn't meet my eyes. I mean, professionally speaking, we don't really work together directly, so... A neighbor, Monica said, her smile now openly amused. How interesting. Well, Jack, if you're free later, perhaps you'd like to join me for a nightcap. I'm staying at the Meridian. We could discuss... business. The Meridian. The same hotel from Emily's receipt. Emily's eyes went wide with panic. Monica, I don't think... Actually, I said, surprising myself with how calm my voice sounded. I'd love to. Jack, no, Emily said quickly. We should probably get going. Early day tomorrow and... Nonsense, I said, looking directly at Monica. What time works for you? Monica's smile was triumphant. Midnight, room 1247. Perfect. I'll see you then. Emily grabbed my arm, her fingers digging into my sleeve. Jack, please, let's just go home. I looked down at my wife, this woman I'd loved for 5 years, who'd just introduced me as a neighbor to her boss, and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. You go ahead, I said. I have business to discuss. As I walked away, I heard Emily calling my name, but I didn't turn around. Behind me, I could hear Monica laughing, a sound like breaking glass. Just a neighbor. The words echoed in my head as I made my way through the crowd. She thought I'd play the fool, stand there and smile while she reduced our marriage to nothing more than proximity. She had no idea I wrote the book on fools, and I was about to teach her the final chapter. I didn't go to Monica's room that night. Instead, I went home and sat in our dark living room, waiting for Emily to return. She came in around 2 a.m., her heels clicking on the hardwood floor like a countdown timer. Jack? She called softly. Are you awake? I didn't answer. I heard her sigh, then the sound of her heels as she walked to our bedroom. The door closed, and I was alone again with my thoughts and the city lights. The next morning, Emily was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Had to go in early. We need to talk tonight. I'm sorry about last night. E. Sorry. As if introducing your husband as a neighbor was something you could apologize for, like spilling wine on a carpet. I called in sick to work, something I hadn't done in 3 years, and spent the day doing research. Emily thought she was clever, but she'd left a trail of breadcrumbs that a blind man could follow. Her laptop was password protected, but I knew Emily. She used the same password for everything, Ambition 2019, the year she'd been promoted to senior manager. Her email was a gold mine, dozens of messages to someone named Ethan Gallery, EG from her planner. The early messages were professional, discussing some corporate art acquisition project, but they'd gradually become more personal. Looking forward to our dinner Tuesday. E. The champagne was perfect. Thank you for a wonderful evening. E. Can't stop thinking about yesterday afternoon. When can I see you again? E. My hands trembled as I scrolled through months of correspondence. Emily had been living a double life, and I'd been too trusting or too stupid to see it. The most recent email was from yesterday. Jack suspects something. We need to be more careful. Maybe we should cool things off for a while. Ethan's response was immediate. Don't let him intimidate you. You deserve better than a marriage that makes you unhappy. Come by the gallery tonight. I'll make you forget all about him. I printed out the emails and put them in a folder. Evidence. If Emily wanted to play games, I'd make sure I had all the pieces. Next, I went through our credit card statements. The Meridian Hotel appeared 6 times in the last 2 months. Always on days when Emily claimed to be working late. There were charges at expensive restaurants I'd never been to, a jewelry store where Emily had supposedly bought earrings for her sister, and a men's clothing store that had charged $800 for what the receipt described as custom silk scarves. Emily didn't wear scarves, but apparently Ethan Gallery did. My phone rang. Sophie Williams. Jack, are you okay? Emily said you were sick. Emily talked to you? She called looking for you. Said she needed to explain something about last night. What happened at the party? I considered telling Sophie everything, but something held me back. Not yet. I needed to understand the full scope of Emily's betrayal before I involved anyone else. Just some misunderstanding with Monica, I said. Nothing serious. Are you sure? Emily seemed really upset. I'm sure. Thanks for checking on me, Sophie. After I hung up, I sat staring at the evidence spread across Emily's desk. Hotel receipts, emails, credit card statements, a paper trail of infidelity that painted a picture I'd been too blind to see. But I needed more than evidence. I needed to see this Ethan Gallery for myself. The gallery was located in the Arts District downtown, a trendy area full of converted warehouses and overpriced coffee shops. The building was modern glass and steel, with Gallery East etched in elegant script across the front window. I parked across the street and waited. At 3:47 p.m., Emily's BMW pulled into the parking lot behind the gallery. She sat in her car for several minutes, checking her makeup in the rearview mirror before getting out and walking to a side entrance. 20 minutes later, a man emerged from the same door. He was younger than me, maybe 32 or 33, with dark hair and the kind of lean build that suggested he spent more time in yoga studios than boardrooms. He wore jeans and a black sweater that probably cost more than most people's rent. This was Ethan Gallery, the man who'd been sleeping with my wife. He walked to a silver Porsche, license plate Art Louvre, and drove away. I waited another hour, but Emily didn't come out. When I finally got home that evening, Emily was in the kitchen, cooking dinner. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes red-rimmed and nervous. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Better?" "Much better. Thanks for asking." She set down her spatula and turned to face me. "Jack, about last night. You mean when you introduced me as a neighbor?" She flinched. "I can explain that. Monica puts a lot of pressure on us to maintain professional boundaries. She doesn't like it when employees' personal relationships interfere with business, so I thought, you thought you'd pretend we weren't married. Not pretend, just downplay it, for the sake of the Henderson account." I nodded slowly, as if this made perfect sense. The Henderson account. Right. How did your meeting with Monica go today? Emily's face went blank. Meeting? You said you had an early meeting. With Monica, about the Henderson account. Oh, right. Yes, it went fine. Good. Very productive. She was lying. I could see it in the way she couldn't quite meet my eyes, the way her hands shook slightly as she turned back to the stove. That's great, I said. I'm glad you're making progress. We ate dinner in relative silence, making small talk about work and weekend plans. Emily seemed relieved that I wasn't pressing her about the previous night. She had no idea I'd spent the day uncovering her secret life. After dinner, she said she needed to run some errands. Just picking up dry cleaning and getting groceries. I'll be back in a couple of hours. Take your time, I said. She kissed my cheek, that same perfunctory peck, and left. I waited 15 minutes, then drove back to the gallery. Emily's BMW was in the parking lot. Through the large front windows, I could see her and Ethan standing close together, examining a painting. As I watched, he put his hand on the small of her back, and she leaned into him. Then he kissed her. Not a friendly peck, but a deep, passionate kiss that lasted nearly a minute. When they broke apart, Emily was smiling, really smiling, in a way I hadn't seen in months. I sat in my car watching my wife betray our marriage and felt something cold and calculating settle in my chest. Emily wanted to play games? Fine. But she was about to learn that some games have consequences she never saw coming. The next morning, I went to Murphy's boxing gym, a place Emily didn't even know I frequented. I'd been going there for 2 years, ever since the stress of corporate life had started eating me alive. It was my escape, my therapy, and my secret. Murphy's was everything our corporate world wasn't: honest, straightforward, and brutal. No politics, no backstabbing, just the pure honesty of fist-meeting heavy bag. "You look like hell," said Tommy Murphy, the 60-year-old ex-prize fighter who owned the place. "Trouble at home?" I wrapped my hands and started working the heavy bag, putting all my rage and frustration into each punch. "My wife's having an affair," I said between combinations. Tommy nodded like this was the most natural thing in the world. "What you gonna do about it?" "I don't know yet." "You know what your problem is, Morrison? You let people walk all over you. But I've seen you fight. When you want to hit hard, you can knock a man flat." I threw a particularly vicious right hook that sent the bag swinging. "Maybe it's time to hit back," Tommy said. After my workout, I drove to Ethan's gallery. The silver Porsche was parked in its usual spot, license plate mocking me, Art Louvier. I walked around the car slowly, noting the custom paint job, the expensive rims, the pristine condition. This car was Ethan's baby, probably worth more than most people's houses. I pulled out my pocket knife and dragged it along the passenger side, leaving a long, deep scratch in the perfect silver paint. Then I did the same to the driver's side. For good measure, I punctured 2 of the tires with quick, precise cuts. On the windshield, I left a note written in block letters: "Stay out of married women's beds." Then I drove to a coffee shop across the street and waited. Ethan emerged from the gallery 40 minutes later, talking on his phone and laughing at something. The laughter died when he saw his car. He dropped the phone and ran to the Porsche, circling it like a man surveying a crime scene. He picked up my note, read it, and looked around frantically. But I was just another customer in a busy coffee shop, invisible behind sunglasses and a newspaper. Ethan called someone, probably Emily, and spoke in rapid, angry gestures. Then he called what I assumed was his insurance company, then a tow truck. I left while he was still dealing with the aftermath, feeling better than I had in months. That evening, Emily came home late and agitated. "Everything okay?" I asked innocently. "Fine, just work stuff. Stressful day." She kept checking her phone throughout dinner, typing quick responses and looking increasingly nervous. "Who keeps texting you?" I asked. "Monica. Crisis with the Patterson account." Another lie. I'd seen Monica at the office that day, and she'd been in meetings all afternoon. Over the next week, I launched a carefully orchestrated campaign of psychological warfare. I started small, anonymous tips to our HR department about Emily's flexible work schedule. A few well-placed comments to colleagues about Emily's new jewelry and expensive tastes. Casual mentions of seeing her car in parts of town that had nothing to do with work. I also began documenting everything. Photos of Emily's car at the gallery, copies of hotel receipts, screenshots of her emails. If this marriage was going to end, I wanted to make sure I had enough ammunition to destroy her professionally as well as personally. The beauty of it was that Emily suspected nothing. She was so focused on her affair and so convinced of my naivety that she never considered I might be fighting back. But Ethan was getting paranoid. I'd seen him checking his car obsessively, looking over his shoulder, jumping at shadows. Good. I wanted him scared. On Friday afternoon, I followed him to an upscale car dealership. He was looking at a new Porsche. Apparently, his damaged one was going to take weeks to repair. I waited until he was deep in conversation with a salesman, then approached casually. "Beautiful car," I said, running my hand along the hood of a red Porsche 911. Ethan looked up, and I saw recognition flicker in his eyes. He'd seen my photo somewhere, probably Emily's phone. "Do I know you?" he asked carefully. "I don't think so. Jack Morrison." I extended my hand with a friendly smile. I work in corporate finance, always dreamed of owning one of these. Ethan shook my hand reluctantly. Ethan Gallery. I own an art gallery downtown. Really? My wife loves art. Emily Chen Morrison. Maybe you know her? The color drained from Ethan's face. No, I don't think so. She's been spending a lot of time in the arts district lately. Says she's working on some corporate acquisition project. Very dedicated, my Emily. Sometimes I don't see her for days. Ethan's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. Anyway, I continued pleasantly, I should let you get back to car shopping. Hope you find something that lasts. You know, some guys don't get second warnings when their property gets damaged. Sometimes they just wake up to find everything they care about completely destroyed. I smiled and walked away, leaving Ethan standing frozen by the red Porsche. That night, Emily came home early and announced she was taking a break from her project. I think I've been working too hard, she said. Maybe we should spend more time together. That sounds wonderful, I said. I've missed you. But even as I held her, I was planning my next move. Emily thought she could manipulate me, use me, and then discard me when it was convenient. She had no idea that her just a neighbor was about to become her worst nightmare. The war had begun, and I intended to win. 2 weeks later, Gallery East was hosting its biggest event of the year, a showcase featuring emerging contemporary artists that had drawn the city's cultural elite. I'd learned about it from the society pages, which mentioned that several corporate executives would be attending. Emily had told me she was working late on quarterly reports. Of course she was. I put on my best suit and drove downtown. The gallery was packed with people holding wine glasses and pretending to understand abstract art. Through the crowd, I spotted Emily near the back, wearing a black dress I'd never seen before. She was standing close to Ethan, who wore a velvet jacket that made him look like a pretentious art student. I grabbed a glass of wine from a passing waiter and made my way through the crowd, stopping to admire various paintings along the way. No one paid attention to me. I was just another middle-aged man in a suit, invisible among the artists and intellectuals. Fascinating piece, I said, approaching Emily and Ethan. They were standing in front of a canvas covered in what looked like random paint splatters. Emily spun around, her face going white. Jack, how did you? I saw the article in the paper, I said pleasantly. Thought I'd come support local artists. You know how much I love culture. Ethan stepped slightly in front of Emily, as if protecting her. I don't think we've been properly introduced. Ethan Gallery. Jack Morrison, Emily's husband. The word husband hung in the air like a threat. Around us, conversations continued, but I could see other gallery patrons beginning to notice the tension. Jack, Emily said quietly, maybe we should... Should what? Leave? But we're just getting acquainted. I turned to Ethan with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. So you're the famous Ethan Gallery. Emily talks about you constantly. She does? Ethan glanced nervously at Emily. Oh, yes. Ethan this, Ethan that. She's been working so hard on your project. Sometimes she doesn't come home for days. Emily's face was now bright red. Several people had stopped their own conversations to listen to ours. I think there's been some misunderstanding, Ethan said. Has there? What kind of misunderstanding? Jack, please, Emily whispered. Not here. Not here? But this is perfect. All these people, all this art. I gestured around the gallery. It's so honest, so revealing. I walked over to a nearby sculpture, an abstract piece made of twisted metal and glass that probably cost more than most people's cars. Take this piece, for example, I said loudly enough for nearby patrons to hear. It looks like one thing from the outside, but when you really examine it... I leaned closer, pretending to study the sculpture. You realize it's completely hollow, all surface, no substance. Sir, Ethan said, his voice strained, I'm going to have to ask you to... To what? Leave? But I'm a potential customer. Emily told me you give very personal service to your clients. The conversations around us had stopped entirely now. A small crowd was gathering, sensing drama. "Jack, stop," Emily hissed. "Stop what? I'm just admiring the art. Although I have to say, some of these pieces look like they belong in a hotel room. The Meridian, maybe. You know, the kind of place where married women go to appreciate art." Emily made a small sound like a wounded animal. Ethan stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "I think you need to leave," he said. "Do I? But I haven't finished my cultural education yet." I turned back to the sculpture. "You know what I hate about modern art? It's all pretense. People pretending something worthless is valuable, pretending something ugly is beautiful." I reached out and gave the sculpture a small push. It rocked on its base, and several people gasped. Pretending something destructive is creative. I pushed it harder. The sculpture teetered dangerously. "Sir, stop!" Ethan lunged forward, but I was already stepping back. The sculpture crashed to the floor with a sound like breaking thunder. Glass and metal scattered across the polished concrete, and the entire gallery fell silent. "Oops," I said mildly. "You bastard!" Ethan shouted. "That piece was worth $15,000. Was it? Looks like trash to me." I turned to Emily, who was staring at the wreckage in horror. "What do you think, honey? Worth $15,000? Emily couldn't speak. She just stood there, shaking. "I'm calling security," Ethan said, pulling out his phone. "Go ahead, but while we're waiting, maybe we should discuss your business practices, like how you provide special services to married clients. I'm sure everyone here would be fascinated to know how Gallery East really operates." "Jack, please." Emily finally found her voice. "Let's just go." "Go? But we're having such a good time, aren't we, Ethan?" Ethan was on his phone, speaking rapidly to security. Around us, gallery patrons were pulling out their own phones, taking pictures and videos. By tomorrow, this would be all over social media. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said conversationally. "My wife introduced me to someone as just a neighbor recently. Can you imagine? A neighbor. Like we just happened to live next door to each other instead of sharing a bed for 5 years." Emily was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "But I guess that's what I am, isn't it, Emily? Just a neighbor. Someone who lives nearby, but doesn't really matter." Security guards appeared. 2 large men in black uniforms who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. "Sir, we're going to need you to leave," one of them said. "Of course. I've seen enough art for one evening." I looked around at the crowd of shocked faces. "Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's performance. It's been very revealing." I started toward the exit, then turned back to Ethan. "Oh, and Ethan, you might want to be more careful about your property. I hear vandalism is a real problem in this neighborhood." As I walked out, I could hear Emily sobbing and Ethan trying to calm the crowd. Behind me, the gallery was in chaos. Broken art, shocked patrons, and 2 lives I'd just destroyed in front of half the city's cultural elite. I got in my car and drove home, feeling more satisfied than I had in months. Emily wanted to play games? Well, game on. The neighbor was just getting started. The fallout from the gallery incident was swift and brutal. By Monday morning, videos of my performance had gone viral on social media. The headlines ranged from "Executive Meltdown at Gallery Opening" to "Art Attack When Corporate Culture Goes Too Far." I arrived at Morrison & Associates to find my assistant, Janet, looking at me with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Mr. Morrison, Mr. Davidson wants to see you in his office immediately." Robert Davidson was the firm's managing partner, my boss's boss. This wasn't going to be a friendly chat about quarterly projections. Davidson's office occupied a corner of the 48th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a commanding view of the city. He was a man in his 60s who'd built the firm from nothing and had no patience for anything that threatened its reputation. "Jack, sit down." I took the chair across from his massive oak desk, noting that he didn't look up from whatever he was reading on his computer screen. "Interesting weekend," he said finally. "Sir?" "Gallery East. Ring any bells?" "There was a small incident." "A small incident?" Davidson finally looked at me, his gray eyes cold as winter. "You destroyed a $15,000 sculpture and created a public spectacle that's been viewed 2 million times on YouTube. Our biggest clients are asking questions, Jack. They want to know if Morrison and Associates employs unstable executives who go around vandalizing art galleries." I remained silent. There was nothing to say that wouldn't make things worse. "What I can't figure out," Davidson continued, "is why you'd throw away a brilliant career over something so personal." He knew. Of course he knew. In a firm like ours, gossip traveled faster than quarterly earnings reports. "Emily's affair is unfortunate," Davidson said bluntly, "but it's not grounds for professional suicide. We've all been there, Jack. Marriage is complicated, but business is simple. You don't embarrass the firm." "I understand, sir." "Do you? Because I'm not sure you do." Davidson leaned back in his chair. "I'm suspending you for 2 weeks without pay. When you come back, you'll be on probation. Any more incidents, any more embarrassment to this firm, and you're finished. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear, sir." "Good. Now get out of my office and figure out how to salvage what's left of your reputation." I left Davidson's office feeling strangely liberated. For the first time in months, the consequences of my actions were clear and immediate. No more games, no more pretense, just honest cause and effect. Emily was waiting by the elevators, her face pale and drawn. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Jack, we need to talk." "Do we?" "Please, not here. Can we go somewhere private?" I considered refusing, but curiosity won out. "The parking garage, level B3. We rode the elevator down in silence. The parking garage was nearly empty. Most people were already at their desks, starting another day of corporate warfare. "I'm sorry," Emily said, as soon as the elevator doors closed behind us. "I'm so sorry about everything." "Which part? The affair, the lies, or introducing me as a neighbor?" She flinched. "All of it. I never meant for things to go this far." "How far did you mean for them to go?" Emily leaned against a concrete pillar, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. "It started as nothing. Ethan was just a client, and we were working on that art acquisition project for the Henderson account. He was charming and funny, and he made me feel... Feel what? Young. Appreciated. Like I mattered for something other than quarterly projections and client presentations. And I didn't make you feel that way? You made me feel safe, secure, but not alive." The words hurt more than I'd expected. After everything, the lies, the betrayal, the humiliation, it was the simple honesty that cut deepest. "So you decided to feel alive with someone else." "It wasn't a decision. It just happened. One dinner led to another, and before I knew it..." "Before you knew it, you were spending our money on hotel rooms and buying him expensive scarves." Emily's eyes widened. "How did you know about the scarves, the hotel receipts, the emails?" I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the folder where I'd saved screenshots of her correspondence. "I know everything, Emily. Every lie, every secret meeting, every time you told me you were working late while you were actually screwing your art dealer." She started crying again, quiet, desperate sobs that echoed in the empty garage. "I wanted to tell you," she whispered. "So many times I almost... But you didn't. Instead, you introduced me as a neighbor and let me stand there like an idiot while your boss propositioned me. Monica was trying to humiliate me. She knew about Ethan, and she was using it to... To what?" Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "She wanted me to sleep with her, said it would be good for my career. When I refused, she started making threats." This was news. "What kind of threats?" "She said she'd tell Davidson about my relationship with Ethan. Ruin my career." unless I played along with her games. I studied my wife's face, looking for signs of deception, but Emily looked genuinely terrified. So, the night of the party, when she asked me to her room, she was trying to force me to choose. Either I let her destroy my career, or I let her destroy my marriage. And you chose to sacrifice the marriage. I panicked. I thought if I could just buy some time, figure out a way to end things with Ethan quietly, maybe I could fix everything. By calling me a neighbor. It was the stupidest thing I've ever done. I knew it the moment the words left my mouth. We stood in the concrete silence of the parking garage. Two people who'd once loved each other enough to build a life together, now strangers connected only by shared destruction. What happens now? Emily asked. Now? Now you figure out how to explain to Davidson why his senior manager has been using company resources to conduct an affair that's become a social media sensation. And us? I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and tried to remember the woman I'd fallen in love with 5 years ago. But all I could see was the stranger who'd betrayed me, lied to me, and reduced our marriage to a convenient fiction. There is no us, Emily. There's just the wreckage. I walked away, leaving her crying in the parking garage. Behind me, I heard her calling my name, but I didn't turn around. The neighbor was done playing games. It was time to end this war once and for all. My 2-week suspension gave me time to plan my final move. I spent the first few days wallowing in self-pity and scotch, but by the end of the first week, I was ready to finish what Emily had started. The key was Monica Reeves. She was the puppet master pulling Emily's strings, and if I wanted to destroy my wife completely, I needed to understand Monica's game. I called Sophie Williams and asked her to meet me for lunch at a restaurant downtown, far from the office and prying ears. "You look terrible," Sophie said when she saw me. "I feel terrible, but I need your help." Sophie was one of the few people at Morrison & Associates I genuinely trusted. We'd worked together for 3 years, and she'd always been straight with me, even when it wasn't convenient. "What do you need?" she asked. "Information about Monica Reeves, specifically her relationship with Emily." Sophie's expression grew cautious. "Jack, I know you're going through a difficult time, but Emily's having an affair. Monica knows about it and is using it as leverage. I need to know what Monica's endgame is." Sophie sighed and took a sip of her wine. "Monica's been gunning for Davidson's job for years. She sees Emily as competition, young, ambitious, connected to important clients. So she's using the affair to control Emily. More than that, she's using it to eliminate Emily entirely. There are rumors that Monica's been documenting everything, photos, emails, financial records. She's building a case to present to Davidson." This was interesting. What kind of case? Misuse of company resources, conflict of interest, violation of the ethics code. Enough to get Emily fired and blacklisted from every major firm in the city. When? Soon. Maybe this week. Monica's been meeting with HR and the executive committee. She's positioning herself as the person who discovered Emily's misconduct and brought it to management's attention. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. Monica wasn't just using Emily's affair for leverage, she was planning to destroy Emily's career and take credit for uncovering the scandal. "There's something else," Sophie said. "Monica's been asking questions about you too. Your suspension, the gallery incident, your relationship with Emily. I think she's planning to paint you both as unstable and unprofessional. A package deal." "Exactly. Get rid of both of you at once, eliminate any potential for retaliation, and look like a hero for cleaning house." I smiled for the first time in days. Monica thought she was playing chess while Emily and I were playing checkers. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated the neighbor. That afternoon, I drove to Gallery East. The sculpture I'd destroyed had been cleaned up, but there was still a small stain on the concrete floor where it had shattered. Ethan was in his office, visible through a glass partition, talking on the phone and gesturing frantically. I waited until he finished his call, then walked into the office. What the hell are you doing here? Ethan jumped up from his desk, knocking over a coffee cup. Relax. I'm not here to break anything else. I have a restraining order. No, you don't. You threatened to get one, but you never followed through. Probably because your lawyer told you it would require explaining why a married man might need protection from a woman's husband. Ethan's face went red, but he didn't deny it. I have a proposition for you, I said, sitting down uninvited. I don't want to hear it. You will, because it involves saving your business and possibly your life. That got his attention. Ethan slowly sat back down, his eyes never leaving my face. You're in trouble, Ethan. Bigger trouble than you realize. Emily's boss has been documenting your relationship. Photos, financial records, everything. She's planning to expose the affair to destroy Emily's career, and you're going to be collateral damage. What kind of collateral damage? Think about it. Emily's been using company resources to conduct your relationship. Company credit cards for hotel rooms, company time for personal meetings, company connections to promote your gallery. When this comes out, you'll be painted as the predator who seduced a married executive for business advantages. Ethan's face went pale. But it wasn't like that. Wasn't it? Emily got you the Henderson account, didn't she? Introduced you to other corporate clients? Used her position to legitimize your gallery in circles you never could have accessed on your own? She wanted to help. She wanted to impress you, and you let her. More than that, you encouraged her. Do you have any idea what that looks like to a corporate ethics committee? Ethan slumped in his chair, the reality of his situation finally sinking in. What do you want? He asked. I want you to help me destroy Monica Reeves before she destroys all of us. How? I pulled out a small digital recorder and placed it on his desk. Monica's going to contact you soon. She'll want to interview you about your relationship with Emily, get you to confirm details for her report to management. When she does, I want you to record the conversation. Why would I do that? Because Monica's not just interested in Emily's affair, she's interested in using it to eliminate competition and advance her own career. If we can prove she's been manipulating this situation for personal gain, we can turn the tables. Ethan stared at the recorder like it was a poisonous snake. Think about it, I continued. Right now, you're the villain in this story, the homewrecker who seduced a married executive. But if we can show that Monica orchestrated this whole thing, that she knew about the affair and encouraged it to create leverage over Emily, then you become a victim too. And what do you get out of it? Revenge. Pure and simple. Monica thinks she can use my wife's infidelity to destroy both our careers. I'm going to show her what happens when you underestimate the neighbor. Ethan picked up the recorder, turning it over in his hands. If I do this, what happens to Emily? Emily made her choice when she decided to cheat on me. Whatever happens to her now is a consequence of her own actions. You really hate her, don't you? I considered the question. Did I hate Emily? Or did I just hate what she'd turned me into? I hate what she took from me, I said finally. My trust, my dignity, my faith in the one person I thought I could count on. She turned me into a fool, and then she introduced me as a neighbor to make sure everyone knew it. Ethan nodded slowly. What do I have to do? I smiled. The final gambit was in motion. Monica called Ethan 2 days later, just as I'd predicted. She wanted to meet at a coffee shop near the gallery to discuss his business relationship with Emily Chen Morrison. Ethan called me immediately after hanging up with her. She wants to meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. She sounded predatory. Perfect. Remember, let her do most of the talking. Ask innocent questions that get her to reveal her motivations. And whatever you do, don't let her know you're recording. What if she finds out? She won't. Monica's arrogant. She thinks she's the smartest person in every room, which makes her careless. The next day, I positioned myself at a table across the street from the coffee shop, with a clear view through the large windows. At exactly 2 p.m., Monica arrived, wearing a tailored business suit and carrying a leather portfolio that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Ethan was already there, sitting at a corner table with his back to the wall. I could see the small recorder in his shirt pocket, barely visible but positioned to catch every word. Monica sat down across from him, and even from my distance, I could see her predatory smile. She opened her portfolio and pulled out what looked like photographs and documents. The conversation lasted 47 minutes. I watched Monica's body language change from professional to conspiratorial to openly threatening. She leaned forward, pointing at documents, her expression growing more animated as she spoke. Ethan played his part perfectly, nodding, asking questions, looking appropriately concerned. To anyone watching, it looked like a routine business meeting. When it was over, Monica shook Ethan's hand and left, looking satisfied. Ethan waited 5 minutes, then walked across the street to my table. "Did you get it?" I asked. He pulled out the recorder with shaking hands. "Every word." We went back to my apartment to listen to the recording. What we heard was better than I dared hope. Monica's voice came through clearly. "The thing you have to understand, Mr. Gallery, is that Emily Chen Morrison has been using company resources to conduct personal business. That's a fireable offense, possibly even criminal." "I didn't know she was using company money," Ethan's voice replied. "Of course you didn't. But ignorance isn't a defense. When this comes out, and it will come out, you'll be painted as the predator who seduced a married executive for business advantages." "What do you mean, when it comes out?" Monica's laugh was cold and calculating. "I've been documenting everything for months. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, emails, photographs. I have enough evidence to destroy Emily's career and probably send her to prison." "Prison?" "Embezzlement, misuse of corporate funds, violation of fiduciary duty. The district attorney loves cases like this, corrupt executives stealing from their companies to fund affairs." There was a pause. Then Ethan asked, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need your cooperation. When I present this case to management, I'll need you to testify about Emily's behavior, how she used her position to benefit your gallery, how she promised you corporate contracts in exchange for personal favors." "But that's not what happened, isn't it? She got you the Henderson account, didn't she? Introduced you to other clients? Used her corporate connections to legitimize your business?" "Well, yes, but..." "Then that's what happened. The motivation is irrelevant. What matters is the pattern of behavior." Another pause. Then Monica's voice turned silky and dangerous. "Of course, if you're not willing to cooperate, I might have to include you in the criminal referral. After all, you did accept those corporate contracts under false pretenses. That could be considered fraud." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm offering you a choice. Help me clean up this mess, and you walk away with your reputation intact. Refuse, and you go down with Emily." "And what do you get out of this?" Monica's laugh was pure poison. "I get rid of a competitor and look like a hero for uncovering corruption. Emily's been gunning for my job for 2 years. This eliminates her permanently and shows the executive committee that I'm the kind of leader who puts company integrity above personal relationships. Even though you've known about this for months and didn't report it. I've been conducting a thorough investigation to make sure I had all the facts. That's called due diligence, Mr. Gallery, something Emily never learned." The recording continued for another 20 minutes, with Monica laying out her entire plan in detail. She'd been orchestrating Emily's downfall for months, collecting evidence and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The gallery incident had given her the opening she needed, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd revealed her true motivations to a man with a digital recorder. I turned off the recording and looked at Ethan. "Congratulations, you just helped me catch a corporate predator. What happens now?" "Now, we take this to Robert Davidson and watch Monica's world burn." "And Emily?" I considered the question. Emily had betrayed me, lied to me, and humiliated me. But she'd also been manipulated by a woman who saw her as nothing more than a convenient target. Emily gets what she deserves, I said finally. But it'll be based on what she actually did, not Monica's manufactured evidence. The next morning, I requested a meeting with Davidson. I brought the recording, the original emails I'd found on Emily's computer, and a detailed timeline of Monica's manipulation. Davidson listened to the entire recording without comment, his face growing darker with each revelation. "This is Monica Reeves?" he asked when it was over. "Yes, sir. And she's been planning to present this case to the executive committee?" "This week, according to the recording." Davidson was quiet for a long moment, staring out his office window at the city below. "Monica's been with this firm for 12 years, he said finally. "I trusted her judgment, relied on her recommendations. To think she's been manipulating situations for personal advancement. What will you do?" Davidson's smile was cold as winter. "I'm going to give Monica exactly what she's been asking for. A chance to present her case to the executive committee. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. "Sir? You'll be there too, Jack, along with Mr. Gallery and his recording. It's time Monica learned what happens when you try to manipulate the wrong people." I left Davidson's office feeling lighter than I had in months. Monica thought she was playing chess while everyone else played checkers. Tomorrow, she'd learn that some games have rules she never understood. The neighbor was about to have his revenge. The executive conference room on the 49th floor was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, while a massive mahogany table dominated the center of the room. This was where the most important decisions at Morrison & Associates were made, where careers were built and destroyed with equal efficiency. At 9 a.m. sharp, the executive committee filed in. Robert Davidson, Chief Financial Officer Patricia Wells, Head of Legal Affairs Michael Chang, and Human Resources Director Sarah Kim. They took their seats around the table with the practiced efficiency of people accustomed to wielding power. Monica arrived 5 minutes later, carrying her leather portfolio and wearing her most confident smile. She'd dressed for victory, a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, her silver hair styled to perfection. "Thank you all for making time for this urgent matter," Monica said as she took her seat. "I've uncovered a serious situation that requires immediate action." "Before we begin," Davidson said, "I should mention that we have some additional participants today." Monica's confident expression flickered slightly as I walked into the room, followed by Ethan Gallery. Her eyes darted between us, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. "I don't understand," Monica said. "This is a confidential personnel matter." "Indeed it is," Davidson replied. "Please proceed with your presentation." Monica opened her portfolio, but her movements were less assured now. She spread photographs and documents across the table, images of Emily and Ethan together, hotel receipts, credit card statements. "As you can see," Monica began, "Emily Chen Morrison has been conducting an inappropriate relationship with this man, Ethan Gallery, using company resources to fund their affair." The committee members examined the evidence with professional detachment. Patricia Wells picked up one of the hotel receipts, studying the dates and charges. "These receipts show a pattern of behavior spanning several months," Monica continued. "Emily has been using corporate credit cards to pay for hotel rooms, expensive dinners, and gifts for her lover." "How did you obtain this information?" asked Michael Chang. "I began noticing irregularities in Emily's expense reports several months ago. As her supervisor, I felt obligated to investigate further." "And during this investigation," Davidson said, "did you report your findings to Human Resources or the Executive Committee?" Monica hesitated. "I wanted to be thorough. Accusations of this nature require substantial evidence." "I see. And what evidence do you have of Mr. Gallery's involvement in these alleged improprieties?" Monica turned to Ethan with a predatory smile. "Mr. Gallery has been very cooperative in my investigation. He's provided detailed information about his relationship with Emily and her use of company resources for personal gain." Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Actually, that's not exactly— Mr. Gallery, Monica interrupted. Please tell the committee about the corporate contracts Emily helped you secure. Well, she did introduce me to some clients, but— And the Henderson account? Emily used her position to steer that business to your gallery, correct? Ethan looked at me, then back at Monica. It wasn't like that. She didn't— Mr. Gallery, Davidson interrupted. Before you answer any more questions, I think you should hear something. Davidson nodded to me, and I pulled out the digital recorder. Monica's face went white as she recognized it. This is a recording of a conversation between Ms. Reeves and Mr. Gallery, made 2 days ago, Davidson announced. I pressed play, and Monica's voice filled the conference room. The thing you have to understand, Mr. Gallery, is that Emily Chen Morrison has been using company resources to conduct personal business. That's a fireable offense, possibly even criminal. The committee members leaned forward, their attention focused entirely on the recording. As Monica's voice continued, revealing her months-long plan to destroy Emily's career for personal advancement, I watched the color drain from her face. I get rid of a competitor and look like a hero for uncovering corruption. Emily's been gunning for my job for 2 years. This eliminates her permanently and shows the executive committee that I'm the kind of leader who puts company integrity above personal relationships. When the recording ended, the silence in the conference room was deafening. Patricia Wells was staring at Monica with open disgust. Michael Chang was taking notes furiously. Sarah Kim looked like she'd witnessed a murder. Ms. Reeves, Davidson said finally, would you care to explain this recording? Monica's mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. It's taken out of context. I was trying to get Mr. Gallery to cooperate with a legitimate investigation. By threatening him with criminal prosecution, I was explaining the potential consequences of— You were manufacturing evidence and manipulating witnesses, Michael Chang interrupted. This recording makes it clear that you've been orchestrating this entire situation for personal gain. That's not true. Davidson leaned back in his chair, his expression cold and calculating. Monica, in your 12 years with this firm, I've trusted your judgment implicitly. I've relied on your recommendations for personnel decisions, strategic initiatives, and ethical matters. To discover that you've been manipulating situations and destroying careers for personal advancement— Robert, please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. The recording speaks for itself. Davidson turned to the other committee members. I think we've heard enough to make a decision. The committee members nodded in agreement. Patricia Wells spoke first. Ms. Reeves, your employment with Morrison and Associates is terminated immediately. Security will escort you from the building. You can't do this. Monica stood up, her composure finally cracking completely. I've given this company 12 years of my life. And in return, Davidson said, you've used your position to manipulate and destroy the careers of junior employees. That's not leadership, Monica. That's predation. Sarah Kim was already on her phone, calling security. Within minutes, 2 guards appeared at the conference room door. Ms. Reeves, one of them said politely, we'll need you to come with us. Monica looked around the room desperately, her eyes finally settling on me. You think you've won? She said. Emily still betrayed you. She still chose another man over her marriage. Nothing changes that. You're right, I said. Nothing changes that. But at least now she'll face consequences for what she actually did, not for your manufactured evidence. As security escorted Monica from the room, she turned back one last time. This isn't over, Jack. Yes, I said quietly. It is. After Monica was gone, Davidson addressed the remaining committee members. We still need to deal with Emily Chen Morrison's actual misconduct. The evidence shows clear violations of company policy regarding the use of corporate resources. What do you recommend? Asked Patricia Wells. Termination, but without the criminal referral Monica was planning. Emily made serious errors in judgment, but she doesn't deserve to have her life destroyed by manufactured evidence. The committee voted unanimously. Emily would be fired, but allowed to resign quietly, preserving what remained of her professional reputation. "And Mr. Morrison?" Sarah Kim asked. Davidson looked at me thoughtfully. "Jack, your actions at the gallery were unprofessional and embarrassing to the firm. But given the circumstances, discovering your wife's infidelity and being manipulated by a senior executive, I think we can be understanding. Your suspension stands, but when you return, you'll be back to full status." "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet. You've got a lot of work to do to rebuild your reputation. But you've also shown remarkable resourcefulness in uncovering Monica's manipulation. That kind of investigative skill could be valuable in the right context." As the meeting broke up, Ethan approached me. "What happens now?" "Now you go back to your gallery and try to rebuild your business. The scandal will follow you for a while, but at least you won't be facing criminal charges." "And you?" I looked out the conference room windows at the city below, the same view I'd admired for 5 years, back when I thought I understood my place in the world. Now I figure out who I am when I'm not just somebody's neighbor. That afternoon, I went home to find Emily packing boxes in our living room. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes red from crying. "I heard about Monica," she said. "And?" "Thank you. For exposing her, I mean. You could have let her destroy me completely." "I didn't do it for you, Emily. I did it because Monica needed to pay for what she did." Emily nodded, understanding the distinction. "I'm moving out. I found an apartment downtown. Small, but it's all I can afford now." "What will you do for work?" "I don't know. Maybe freelance consulting. Maybe something completely different." She taped up a box and set it aside. "I'm sorry, Jack. For all of it. The affair, the lies, calling you a neighbor. I was selfish and stupid, and I hurt the one person who never deserved it." I sat down on our expensive sofa and looked around the apartment we'd built together. The art on the walls, the furniture we'd chosen, the life we'd constructed from shared dreams and mutual ambition. "Do you love him?" I asked. Emily was quiet for a long moment. I thought I did, but I think I was just in love with the idea of being someone different, someone more exciting than a corporate executive in a practical marriage. And now? Now I realize that excitement isn't the same thing as happiness, and that practical marriages are built on things that matter: trust, respect, partnership, things I threw away for champagne and hotel rooms. She finished packing her box and looked at me with something that might have been hope. "Is there any chance?" "No," I said gently. "There's not." Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. I had to ask." She left that evening, taking only her clothes and personal belongings. The apartment felt enormous and empty without her, but also somehow cleaner, as if her departure had removed a poison I hadn't realized was there. I poured myself a scotch and stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Monica was probably planning her next move, Emily was starting over in a small apartment, and Ethan was trying to salvage his gallery business. But I was done with all of them. The war was over, and I'd won something more valuable than revenge. I'd won my self-respect back. The neighbor had finally come home,